Welcome to the GOAT District. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Smash the subscribe, smash the like. If you don't know what we're about here, we're here to help you win. We're all about winning, man. That's all we do here. We bring the best guests. We bring the best players on the planet to share their goodness with you guys. We share our goodness with you guys. We walk the walk. We talk about a trade, we've probably made that trade. We talk about a player to target, it's probably a player that we're targeting. Guys, we're here to help you win. The show is here to help you win, but the channel is also here to help you win. And make sure you guys are tuning in. Mike Tagliere was on with John McGlynn the other night. Theo and Andrew are drafting best balls, $100 buy-in best balls. They're drafting Football Guys Championships, high stakes, redraft, dynasty, any kind of fantasy you play. We've got the goodness to help you win. Tonight is no different. The VIP guests are just coming in. Tonight is no different, guys. You know how it works. Let's dance.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back to the GOAT District. Guys, it's almost August. Can you believe it's almost August? Can you just smell the football in the air? You got Aaron Rodgers finally getting to camp. You know, last year we talked a bit about injury season. You know, how to be a bull in a bear market, I guess, is kind of the approach. If you want to go check that out last week, awesome show. Guys, tonight we have so much to talk about. We got a huge guest. Dan, you look jacked over there. How pumped are you, brother?
Oh, it basically, I feel like the Hulk, man. It is clobbering time when it comes to drafts right now. Just clobbering time. You've just got a couple weeks here before everybody starts figuring out what we already know about which players are good, which players aren't. So which players are in a prime position to maybe come out unexpectedly. And so this is kind of the chance to get them in drafts. So I got a bunch of drafts going. Super excited about how some of those are falling. So it's just a great time of year. And football in like a week, right? That's the best part. We got a Hall of Fame game in like 7 or 8 days, something like that. I mean, it's just crazy. I'm pumped.
Yeah, Theo, talking about drafts, you and Andrew just smashing those Football Guys drafts. And you guys had a good one the other night. And why don't you tell us who's coming up later this week, buddy? Huge show.
So Andrew booked Ship Chasing. They're coming on Thursday night, Thursday afternoon. Andrew has the time for that one. Andrew drafted right next to those guys in a main event. If you've ever drafted against Andrew, you know he's a huge wide receiver guy. He always kind of leans towards a zero RB type build as to those Ship Chasing guys. So they snipe each other back and forth. It'll be really interesting to hear them kind of talk about their processes and how many times they actually did snipe one another. And I'm really looking forward to hearing those guys talk. And then Andrew and I actually drafted last night. A great episode to check out. We had another $500,000 Billies GOAT District.
It's a good show.
We had a little first overall pick, so we didn't mind that. So that was good. And Dan had his Pros versus Joes last night.
That's right. That's right, Dan. I forgot to ask you. Actually, your roster is pretty sweet. Forgot about that.
Yep, we'll have to give the update on that one. So
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. All right, guys. Like we said, we got a lot to talk about tonight. We have an awesome guest. Let's not waste any time, man. Let's bring this man in. I mean, the name itself, guys. Mr. Jax Falcone. Welcome to the GOAT District, my friend.
With the accent, nicely done. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, absolutely. The pleasure
We're
is
fired
ours.
up. We're fired up.
I heard the intro. There's going to be this big guest. So who's going to be on?
We're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Right off the bat, he gets the air horns. That's a real entertainer right there. No, man, look at that. He's got wine in hand. I mean, it doesn't get any more Falcone than that. Jax, tell us, for those who might not already know, tell us about the goodness you have going on over there at the Undroppables. Tell us about your podcast, your awesome podcast, and anything else, man. I know you're very active on Twitter. So guys, if you're not following this man on Twitter at Dino Game Theory, Jax, tell him about all the other goodness.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I mean, the undroppables.com is sort of the hub. That's where it all happens. I mean, we've got Devy rankings, Dynasty rankings, redraft rankings, offensive line rankings. We have our very own Brad Wire doing offensive line rankings, which is very important. You certainly want to, know which offensive line is good and bad before you start investing in backs and skill positions. The Undrafted is the name of the pod. It's been great, man. Very warmly received, and I'm very grateful for all of that. We've got a lot of stuff going on. I'll touch on a few of those things, but we've got, a few doctors, Edwin Porras and Adam Hutchinson are both former Undroppables and are now, making it kind of big in the industry. So, we're just kind of a launching point for a lot of people. And, we're looking for that young talent all the time. And so we love what we're doing over there.
I'm just noticing your Winter Classic ticket back there. That's sweet, man.
Thanks, man. What do you got? George St. Pierre up there?
Yeah, buddy, right there.
There you go. I see GSP.
We got GSP, we got Manning, we got Batman, we got the three goats right there.
Yeah, you got Jax Falcone there. There he is.
There he is.
That's a beauty. I noticed that in the back. Is that a painting or is that like a poster?
I can't reveal.
Nice. I love it. So I always like to ask, before I pass it to Theo, I always like to ask, like, how would you describe yourself as a player, as a fantasy player? Whether it's Dynasty, are you kind of aggressive, big trader, you win now kind of guy, you building for the future? Just, let people know kind of what your game's like.
That's a good question. I mean, so when I started to, get involved in sort of the advice giving side of this, I didn't have the Dino Game Theory moniker, and I started to think about what I wanted my name to be, or how to sort of share myself, and the Dino Game Theory, Dynasty Game Theory is exactly what I kind of think of. I want to think of it in terms of it's a strategic game, and if you can win every strategic sort of advantage, even on the the micro advantages as they're called, then I think when you stack all those things up over time, you end up having a great, squad, almost no matter what happens. You can withstand ups and downs and all the rest of it, as long as you're consistently employing strategies that are going to win over the long term. So I'm not an instant gratification type of player. I'm a long-term builder. Mike Liu, who's a good friend of mine, coined the term the Iron Bank. And I think that's a lot of it. When you rebuild, you want to put things into the Iron Bank. The Iron Bank is basically draft capital. So there's a lot of different strategies in order to sort of get yourself there. But and I've employed a lot of them. But ultimately, I think transactionally, you want to win on the margins as much as possible. And over time, it's gonna work out eventually.
Those small edges, right? That's what we talk about every week, guys. You tune in to shows like this and to shows like Jax, like to get that little edge, right? You don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight, right? And maybe the edge isn't, maybe it's not that big of a difference, but you could end up in that situation if most of your league mates are watching shows like this all off season, and you're just maybe not paying attention or doing what you need to be doing. So those little I like the micro edges. I like
yes, yep. Absolutely. And I mean, I think a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this as well, we talk a lot about player eval. I mean, we're going to talk a lot about player eval in tonight's show, of course. Like, that's what you do. You talk about this player versus that player, but, not a lot are people giving advice on, strategies and how-tos. And, whether you think this guy or that guy's good, understand the premise of what you're doing so that way you don't make big mistakes. And I think that's really what I try to do on my show. Although, I've had a different guest on my show basically every week. So, it's a challenge to get my sort of takes off as well as to highlight my guests. But we have a lot of fun doing, man. We've had a lot of great guests. I mean, the guest list has been great. And for me, it's not about the big name. It's about the guys who are really sharp in this business. And that's who I go after. I guess I do care if they're kind of a big name. It does help, bring the show along. But moreover, they're big names because they're smart, So that's the kind of guys I like to have on.
Yeah, for sure.
Similar approach here, right, Theo, with our guest list which has been on fire lately.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I highly encourage anybody who's not following Jax to go ahead and follow him. He's one of my favorite Dynasty follows. I think that, a lot of guys will just throw hot takes out, but Jax will throw really, really good threads that are very data-driven and really analytical in his approach. And I love the way you talk about how you want to win on the margin. I think if you do that often enough, like you said, it's not just about player evaluation. I think you give yourself more room for error with your teams. If you can continually win, here and there, pick up that extra second-round draft pick, maybe flip a player in a second for a first, you're giving yourself, essentially more chances to win. And I love that approach. So highly recommend you check out some of that stuff you guys are doing over there. And agreed, you have a great pod with some really good guests. And I think for us, we want to get guests like yourself that can bring a great approach, and we kind of balance that out with a lot of very successful fantasy players. We're stoked to talk some football tonight. So
yeah, I can't wait. And I'll give you an example of what you're talking about with the micro edges. There's times where when you're buying a player, I always say if you're buying a player, you kind of have to quote unquote overpay. In other words, if I'm selling CMC, I'm not going to sell him light. I'm going to sell him for King's ransom, right? So if you're buying CMC, conversely, you have to be ready to pay. So trades like that, where you're acquiring something like to help you win a Patrick Mahomes or this or that, whatever. Okay, that's a different trade. But when you're trading, I call them volume trades, right? In other words, during the draft, you're going to make a lot of trades, or during, the startup, maybe you're going to make a high number of trades. Those are the trades that you want to quote unquote win. And even if you win them all by just a little bit, you get that extra little second round pick here and there. That's how you accumulate a lot of value. So in volume trading times, you want to win those trades. If you're selling, you need to get paid. And if you're buying, be ready to pay.
Yeah.
And you're able to afford those differences by doing that, right?
Bingo. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and you set yourself up, if you are a contender, you set yourself up to really go and get guys when you have those extra picks, or maybe those extra, players that might have upside on your bench. You're continually improving your rosters, and when you have a chance to really pounce, you can go ahead and do so. I think that's a great way of looking at the game.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of times people will spend a first round pick on someone, and you're like, trade a first round for this guy, and you're like, man, that was too soon. He could have waited and got that guy for a lot less. And so a lot of times it's just about patience too. It's really hard because, you guys have it ready to be trading or whatever, always be trading. It's trade, trade addicts pod, trade, I'm shaking, ready to trade. I always want to trade. It's so much fun. But ultimately, so you have to employ patience, right? Because you don't have to worry about, I always want to make a move. Transactions are fun as shit. That's why the game is fun. But, patience also pays, and like you're saying, stockpiling those picks to the point where you can actually make a move that's going to make a difference for your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's just to add on that, and I was thinking about this today in Dynasty, and especially tonight we're going to talk about rookies. First we'll talk about the good stuff, a little Green Bay action.
Ooh, I can't wait.
But I've been saying a lot, I've been kind of into crypto lately, and they say in crypto, you want to hold on to these coins, these life-changing type of coins until they have time to make those changes.
Sure.
That point. And it's same with these dynasty pieces that we get, whether it's the draft pick or the rookie. We're just like you just said, we're just we'll listen to a show and oh my God, I gotta go
get that guy.
Do that. And you just drafted the guy 2 weeks ago, and he was you had to have him, or you made a move. Now all of a sudden somebody offers you you're like, yeah, maybe I could maybe do that. So you gotta. I think patience is huge, and that's one thing I say often on the show. That's Dan is huge with that. He's he's kind of my voice of reason when it comes to patience. All right, guys, let's talk Green Bay, man. Come on, let's get into the goodness.
I'm so ready.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think we'll start off with from a redraft perspective. What's your Aaron Rodgers reports to camp? How are you gauging these Green Bay players on your redraft focus? Where do you see Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers kind of leveling in for you, and how you're approaching this year?
Yeah, for redraft, I think I'm moving Aaron Jones way up, maybe as high as RB5. So, I don't know if I've got him there yet. I was just tinkering with it because I knew we would be doing the show, and I think I had him RB11 or something like that, RB10, and I've got him all the way at RB5 right this second, ahead of Derrick Henry and JT, right behind Kamara and Zeke. So I feel really good about Aaron Jones going into the season. I think he's going to have a huge year. Devontae, you could argue, for me, he's in that Tyreek tier. So it's him and Tyreek. If you feel like you want to take Devontae now, he's comfortably 1 or 2 for me. Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to check now because I was feeling that too. I was really liking that. I've gotten a lot of Aaron Rodgers so far in best ball. I mean, he was just criminally undervalued. I knew he was going to be playing. Oh, excuse me. I felt like he was going to be playing. So I've got him now at quarterback 7. Ahead of right there with Joe Burrow, ahead of Joe Burrow, ahead of Russell Wilson. I don't know. I just trust that team a little bit more on a consistency basis. I think Aaron Rodgers was dope last year. I think he'll continue to be great this year. Tunyon certainly moves into that sort of, late, tight end 10 to 13 group there, and you can take him wherever you like in that sort of group. So that's where I've got him.
Yeah, you can go ahead and say you knew Aaron Rodgers was coming back.
I was put it this way: I was playing the offseason as if he was.
Right, exactly.
Same.
That I will tell you.
And anyone who listened to this show should have been doing the same.
Yeah,
exactly.
Especially Superflex. I talk about Pigs 3. I couldn't get a QB for like 3 years. I got myself Aaron Rodgers just because of that situation.
Right. Bingo.
No, we've been talking about that on the GOAT District for months now, about how we all expected kind of Aaron Rodgers to work out and get back there. So I'm glad it happened, but I'm not surprised. Now, one thing that we haven't really heard about this week in terms of the pause that come out after Rodgers' return, and I'd like your opinion from a dynasty perspective. How are you handling Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, knowing that this might very well be Aaron Rodgers' last year in Green Bay?
Anytime I have a dope asset like a Devontae Adams, if my team isn't good, I'm selling him because he can't go up. What is he? Wide receiver 1. So right. You can't go get any better than that. So I'd rather lose with young players than lose with him. Now if I'm winning, I still have on a team I've won a few titles in a row. I've still got Julio. And he was touch and go here. I probably could have sold him higher, and I just didn't give a shit. He's on the team, and we're rolling with him. And it's back to back to back. It's going to keep going. And on a team like that, you're okay with him, quote unquote, retiring on your team. I suppose I maybe could have made a move, but I was happy to have him. So same thing there. I think Aaron Jones. Same thing with any premier running back. Dalvin Cook, any of the top 5 to 10 running backs that aren't rookies or really young. Sell them if you're not winning, and I guess ride them if you're winning. It's kind of that simple. But yeah, there's no sense in having an asset like that on your team, especially in Aaron Jones, if he's your only good asset.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I like your call about Aaron Jones. At RB5, I think some people might think that's aggressive, but with Jamal Williams out of town, the targets are going to go to Jones out of that backfield, and I think we've talked about this on the GOAT District. Is I expect him to have a career year receiving. We already know how efficient he is, rushing the ball. So I think that's a great call, and I think he'll settle into that first round. And Devontae should be right there in the first round with him for most PPR redraft leagues. Dan, would you agree that that's?
Yeah, for sure. And I think for the same reason, it's. A.J. Dillon just got a lot more compelling as well. One of the things I like about A.J. Dillon or Valdez-Scantling or, any of these secondary options in Green Bay is the Green Bay medical staff. They are super, super conservative when it comes to clearing players to go back in and play after they're out for a week or two. It kind of tends to turn to 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. And so when you've got when you've got those secondary assets, if they were on a different team, they might only have a week or two of glory, but on Green Bay, the odds are they're going to have like 5 weeks of glory. So, it's worth grabbing those assets wherever you can, just for that reason. But yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to lift the tides, and in Dynasty, Jax had it exactly right. If you're competing, you want them, and if you're not competing, you want to sell them because everybody knows they're going to be good this year.
Yeah, and it's not that far off. He was RB4 last year, PPR per game. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not like he's like in the top 20, and now we're saying he's going to be top 5. He was putting out those numbers. He was 4th in rushing last year as well. So,
yeah, who do you put above him? I mean, that list is very small.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that the players that have been drafting early that got that discount with Aaron Jones, I think that's going to be huge for those teams. Devontae never really fell. I feel like he fell to like the second round. You'd see him maybe mid-second. But Jones, you see a couple of Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones teams right now floating around that are now looking like just absolute monsters. Where he'd go at like the 2-3 turn. So that'll be interesting to see if some of these early drafters get rewarded, especially in some of these big tournaments. I wanted to flip over and go to maybe a less happy situation. Cam Akers goes down, done for the season. How are you treating Cam Akers as a dynasty asset right now?
With sadness, a lot of sadness. So last year, a year and 2 months ago, just after the NFL draft, just before rookie drafts, Cam Akers was easily the number 5 running back in ADP, which meant that he was behind, Judy and Lamb and sometimes Jefferson, certainly the quarterbacks. I mean, he was going sometimes almost at the turn in rookie draft Superflex. I own all the Cam Akers in Dynasty because in rookie drafts, he was like my RB2, and here he was late in the first round. I mean, it was just an automatic click. There were times my brain would freeze. I'd be in the late first round, and I'd have CeeDee Lamb and Cam Akers, and I'd have to pause the draft and trade for both picks because I wouldn't know what to do. I'd have to. I mean, really, it's crazy. Like these two studs are just falling to the late first. So for me, Cam Akers was owned everywhere. I took him in every startup. I had well over 50% exposure to Cam Akers in Dynasty. So with a great deal of sadness, just before he got hurt, myself and BZB, I'm sure you all know the BZB, Jake Bisong, a fellow Undroppable. We're in a league together. I traded him straight up for DeAndre Swift. I got Cam Akers back, and then he popped his Achilles. So I was acquiring him everywhere. That was more of a he loves Swift, I love Akers. We just had fun with it trade, but still, nonetheless. Now, what am I doing? I'm holding. I am not selling light on Cam Akers because, we talked about this a little bit last week with, with Justin Boone, and he was advocating that he would sell for a first, and I've been thinking about that. Zero chance I'm selling for a first unless that first is really almost a sure pick, a 1.01 in a super flex league. I'm not so sure that I want any of those. Like if you said I'll just trade you Breece Hall for Cam Akers, I don't know that I'm doing that. I don't know that he's better than Cam Akers. And right now with medicine, we're seeing Kevin Durant. We're seeing a lot of players come back from the Achilles stronger and ready to go. All reports are that Marlon Mack is good. Like all the guys are good. The rookie from Minnesota, the kid on the Vikings, I can't say his last name. You guys can help me with that one. But he tore his Achilles. Yeah, he tore his Achilles. He ran a 4.39 at the combine or whatever. I mean, or there wasn't a combine, but his pro day. I think these guys are getting better medical treatment. I think Cam Akers hurt it early in the year. I think he'll be back for training camp next year. And unless he is one of these guys that just, doesn't heal, I guess. But that's the risk you're taking. You're not taking a risk as to whether or not he's good or not. He's dope. He's going to be great. So I'd rather have him right before the season. You're going to want Cam Akers over a first-round pick, I think. So I'm keeping Cam Akers. If someone wants to way overpay me, which they're never going to do, then I'll maybe sell him. But I'm just hanging tight.
Dan, you I think it was you that shared Ethan Turner put out a nice thread just saying be careful to compare the Akers injury to Durant. And if you look at, that Durant's route to recovery is kind of in its own atmosphere, if you want to call it that, just because of he's one of the best players in the league, and the treatment he had, like his therapist living with him 24/7 and this and that. So again, I agree with you, and I do think that even if he doesn't come back the way that you would want him to, just the hype that's going to be around it when he gets back, you'll probably be able to sell.
Who's the last player that didn't come back from an Achilles?
Who's the last player who did?
Everybody. Back. Emmanuel Sanders, Terrell Suggs came back in year 1. KD, all these guys. I mean, they're all coming back. OJ Howard's back. They're all back. I mean,
we just haven't
serious.
seen a running back at the NFL level. We
also haven't seen a running back be any good. Name me the good running back that tore his Achilles. You're gonna use Arian Foster. He was 30. Scratch that one. If you're gonna bring Mikel LaShore.
Beanie
Wells. Come on. Hell out of here.
Oh yeah, I know, but it's easy to say. It's easy to say in hindsight. Because
how long ago was Beanie Wells?
What?
How long ago was Beanie Wells?
About 7 years ago, I think. Something like that.
Are you sure?
No, I mean, I'm never sure. I mean, I'm old enough that anytime I say 7 years, it's probably 15. But
I think it's longer than that, and I think the medicine has changed. Where did Kobe go to rehab? He went to Germany. Why did he go to Germany? Because those techniques, right?
Plasma.
All those techniques, the human growth hormone, all that stuff is only available there. I mean, now it's available stateside. They're taking care of these athletes right. I just think there's a chance he's.
I would never say never. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm
betting.
I'm not digging his grave or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I'm also of the opinion that I have not seen a running back at the NFL level come back and be as good as they were.
They were never there. They were never there.
Yeah.
There's not a running back who was there, so they can't come back if they were never there.
It's a good point.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true. There was no incumbent running back. But
how there was Akers? I mean,
he was a top 5 startup pick. I mean, he was gonna be the man.
Yeah, but Beanie Wells was pretty high up there too. If we're talking startup picks, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It just kind of depends on how you want to define.
He was a top 12 redraft pick ever. Beanie Wells?
No, not a top 12 redraft pick ever. But neither. I mean, Cam Akers has never been a top 12 redraft pick.
He was this year all year.
When he was this year, but. Then he tore his Achilles, whereas Beanie never had the chance to because he tore his Achilles in the year that he was a rookie.
So let me ask you this, Jax.
Let me ask Dan. Dan, so you're betting against him healing, correct? Or are you betting him against him as a player? Which one of those two, or both? I'm just curious.
I am betting against him healing.
Yeah.
I'm not betting against him as a player. I love the talent. I was very happy because I was starting to try to acquire some acres. I was very happy that I didn't get very far along in that. I saved myself just because didn't have time to put in the effort. But
are you selling light for 2:22 seconds?
I would not sell for 2:22 seconds. I would sell for any 2022 first, though.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. And, I get where you're coming from too.
It's fair, by the way.
I tend to take a much, I'm much more injury pessimistic on people coming back from injuries as fast as, Saquon was somebody I've been on all offseason saying, pump the brakes, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. I was saying the same thing about Burrow. I might end up being wrong about Burrow, but I found, through, you've been playing fantasy for years. I've been playing fantasy for years. You kind of find that, sometimes you just don't want to fight against that injury. It's too tough of it.
Dan, you're absolutely right. Like, one thing that I've felt like is I've been betting against injury my whole life. I'm with you as well. But what's been interesting is a lot of our preconceived notions about injuries have been changing because of modern medicine and the way that, as you guys point out, trainers living with the guy, these guys were smoking cigarettes on the sideline 20 years ago. I mean, so do you know what I mean? It's just a different deal. So I think there's something there. And I know this is going to come as a surprise, but I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
Guys, if you're listening, smash. You're watching right now, smash the like button. Smash the like. And if you're listening, guys, and you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, it's a must check out because these drafts that we talk about, the high stakes, the boards are there. You can follow along. Just, guys, check out the show, smash the like, smash the subscribe. Jax, I just want to ask you, I don't want to spend all night on this, but going the other way real quick, just to help out our listeners, is there an opportunity to buy acres, right now and what is that buy? What's the reasonable buy? What do you go with?
I just offered Dan 2:22 seconds. So I'm certainly glad to fish around. And the way that I would probably buy him is those 2:22 seconds, then give him Myles Gaskin, Chase Edmonds, players like that, where I know they're not going to be good next year. And the
value that's gonna drop after 20.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Chase Edmonds is my RB4 or 5 because I built this dope team and whatever, or whatever, or I'm bad and he's my RB2. I mean, so I'd rather have Akers and lose this year and hopefully have Akers next year. So yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I also advocated like a package trade. By the way, one of the things you guys had on your intro that was great. It was in the wrap. They said, and they try and make them complex.
Yeah.
That's Dynasty Game Theory. Make the trade super fucking confusing so the other guy doesn't know what the hell's going on. He's like,
I love that.
They look at it a couple of times like, wait, I'm getting Dalvin Cook. I think this is good. I'm going to take it. Next thing you know.
I love that.
But,
no doubt.
But I think like a Cam Akers and a first for like a Nick Chubb or an Aaron Jones, where, I've got Aaron Jones. That's a good way to sell Aaron Jones. Like get a Cam Akers and a first back for Aaron Jones, right?
Theo just did that with Michael Thomas, I believe.
Yeah, I threw Thomas in a trade with Chubb to get Tyreek Hill. So I upgraded at wide receiver, I think, considerably. I had depth at running back with that team, and I got rid of my last Michael Thomas share, which is a whole nother sad subject to discuss. A depressing one. I mean, but I like where you're coming from. I actually talked to a lot of Dynasty players who I really, really respect this week and their approach to the Akers injury. And I think you'll find some sellers like Dan. I think you'll find some buyers. I have one contender where I would consider selling him because I really want to win it this year.
Yes.
But I have one beat up rebuilding team where I've made some low ball offers to try. And I like what you in your pod with Boone, where you talked about it's kind of like you kind of consider him almost like a draft pick, where there's draft picks don't always hit. Cam Akers might not always hit, but if he does hit, he could come back like one of the upper echelon running backs in this upcoming draft class. So I think if you're a rebuild team, that's the kind of guy you should make little offers on. Stick him on your bench, and then a year from now you might have 2 firsts and a Cam Akers coming back, and you might be able to improve very, very quickly. So it's a polarizing subject. His team,
especially if you have IR spots, because then you stick them down there.
IR spots make it so much easier. But to put over and look at his teammate Darrell Henderson. I'll first start with redraft. How are you viewing Darrell Henderson as a redraft asset? And then Dynasty, is he an obvious sell for you, or is he somebody you think could surprise?
So I think they're going to bring somebody in LA. I don't think it's going to be the Xavier Jones show. It's just it. I may be wrong. I mean, that's possible. I think they just have too many aspirations to be great, and I think it's too difficult to rely on all those. Well, Xavier's not a rookie, but basically all those rookies behind Darrell Henderson, and Darrell Henderson's not a proven pass blocker either. So I think whomever they bring in will likely be a veteran who excels at pass blocking, someone they can count on down the stretch of games in almost all game situations. I mean, Melvin Gordon hits that description pretty well, and I think Denver may find him expendable if they can find the right value there. I'm not sure about that, but I think that could be a good match. And if that were to happen, I mean, if a player like Melvin Gordon were to come in, Darrell Henderson is now back to sort of a 40-50% player, which is still fine. He had weekly upside, before Akers got hurt. I thought it was going to be those two guys, and it was going to be 70-30 or something like that. And so sometimes he'd get 40-50% of the share and be okay. But I would be very hesitant to pencil him above guys, like even Josh Jacobs. I mean, I'm not taking him ahead of Josh Jacobs, probably just after that in that, Myles Gaskin, Chase Edmonds, Damian Harris tier, probably even behind Kareem Hunt. I think Kareem Hunt is better in redraft. So somewhere in that ballpark is where he is. So whatever that is, I can look, but I think it's like RB 20.
Like a low end RB2.
Yeah, further down into the 20s for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've got him right here. Let's see where I've got him. RB 24. So yeah, right there at the 2-3 turn there. RB2, RB3. So yep.
And I mean, do we know what CJ Anderson is doing these days?
Wouldn't that be something, man?
I'm just asking.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, but it's a guy like that, right? I mean, and CJ Anderson was nobody until he was somebody. I mean, when they signed him, right? So I think it's someone like that. I don't know. I mean, we opined a few different people when we were talking about it, me and Booney, but it almost doesn't matter who it is. It's like, I mean, there's going to be better case scenarios and worst case scenarios for Darrell Henderson, but I think either way, it's going to be somebody. I think I shared on that pod as well. It's kind of like the James Robinson situation. I was screaming from the tallest mountains for everybody to get off the James Robinson boat, and everybody was like, he's going to be fine. They'd never draft a running back early. I'm like, all right, so be it.
Is there not one of those every single offseason? Like every offseason is one of
those. It was like an open book test.
Well, I mean, you're expecting rationality out of a NFL coaching staff, or
not going to happen.
Yeah, there are very few of them that are going to play that way. So
he was going to draft Kadarius Toney, for Christ's sakes.
Right. Well, and I wish he had, because I did have one team where I didn't unload Robinson. I was just like, I couldn't really get anything for him, So I was just like, I'll keep him and see what happens. And then when I heard he wanted Kadarius Toney but took ETN because he couldn't get Toney, I'm like, oh, God.
I mean, it's comical.
You'd
consider Kadarius Toney in any sort of realm next to Travis Etienne.
It boggles my mind. Even more comical is, Gettleman finally does the right thing in a draft and trades down. And then he takes this bounty that he got for trading down and he squanders it on Toney, which then had the domino effect of ETN to the Jags, which killed Robinson. I mean, Gettleman is just like a destroyer of fantasy value.
Although he did help Dalvin Cook. I appreciate what he did, because he should have taken Kristen Darrisaw. Instead, Darrisaw fell all the way to Minnesota.
Yeah, there you go.
My Dalvin Cook shares got really happy because I got a lot of him too. It's Dalvin and Akers everywhere. Dalvin, Akers, and JT was my everywhere.
Yes. You just described
good call. Okay, I feel a little bit more charitable towards Gettleman now.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, before we keep going to goodness, we got to give a quick shout out to our partners, our friends over at the FFPC, the best site to play fantasy football, guys, whether it's best ball, high stakes, dynasty, redraft, Terminator, $5 slim. I've been doing these late night live slims for $5 just whenever I'm doing work or doing other stuff. I put them on in the background. They're awesome. They're awesome to do. They got 35, 77. Guys, every single price point you can think of, you can win up to $500,000 in not one, but two tournaments. You can win $100,000 playing best ball, guys, on the FFPC. myffpc.com. Check it out. Tag Dan, myself, Theo. If you are new to the site, if you're just signing up, let us know. Send me your username, your not your password, your username and your email. And I'll hook you up with and we'll give Jax
just send over your social security number and your password. We'll get you guys dialed in.
I have a cousin. He's a prince out in Ethiopia or something like that.
Just needs to transfer some money and it'll net you big.
But before we keep going, because like you said, guys, we're like, we can go so many ways and we got so many questions. But Alex Maxwell giving us his time tonight, giving us his question. Let's just touch on it. Watson is a big name right now in fantasy, in football. A lot of uncertainty, and we say it every week, guys. Where there's uncertainty, there's usually opportunity. Jax, the people have heard our takes on Watson. Let them know where you're at with the latest, where you were before. Has that changed?
That's funny that you said this. On my notes, I said buying uncertainty. It was one of the things I was going to mention to one of your questions later on in the show sheet. Spoiler alert. But so when you said that, I was like, there it is. Definitely buy into the uncertainty. But in this case, his question is, are any of you taking the stance with Watson playing this year? No, I'm not. I mean, look, where his value is, he's super, super cheap. So in late best balls, I'm taking either Taysom Hill or Deshaun Watson, in the very late, if I really want an upside quarterback late, a third quarterback, never as my second quarterback. If I'm ever taking an upside third quarterback in best ball, but really that's about it. I've got a barista over here. It's unbelievable. So this year, no, I'm pretty much hands off with Watson because I think he's going to be suspended for at least some period of time. I mean, it could be as much as the whole season. I mean, if they do a Ray Rice thing where they suspend him for 3 or 4 games, it will not be pretty because, I mean, I would be fucking pissed off too. I mean, this is bullshit. This guy is accused of doing some pretty horrific things. I don't know if he did it or not, but you can't let him play until that shakes out because that is a stain on the league. That's just ugly stuff, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's also the question is, can he beat out David Johnson for the running back job or not?
David Johnson, boy, oh boy.
I mean, they were playing him at running back and safety and 4th string quarterback today in practice. So,
wow.
I mean, you just can't make it up.
Did you guys know that the Houston Texans average age per player is the oldest team in the NFL too? Not only are they dog shit.
Is that before or after they move Randall Cobb?
Maybe it went down a little bit. Actually, Randall Cobb's younger than you think. I bet he's not 30. But
I think he might be.
He might have just turned. I'm serious. He might be 29.
Yeah, he's young.
Yeah.
Yeah, check it out. But like they're the oldest team. They have no draft picks and no young player. It's a fucking comedy.
Yeah, they just basically signed a bunch of special teams players all off season long. That's all they did. And then, the little draft capital they had, they burned like 3 picks trading up into the 3rd round. For what?
All that oil money going to waste over there.
Right.
Randall Cobb, 30 years old. Yeah, he'll be 31 this year.
Yeah, but I mean, he's been around the league forever. I mean, that guy's, you think about it when he started out with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that was back in 2012 or something like that. 2013.
You would have thought he's like 35 years old.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, but he started out in the league real young. Well, we kind of we skirted around it, but I think we should come back to it. What do you think about Michael Thomas? What's your long-term prognosis there? What are you doing with Thomas? Redraft, Dynasty, where you at?
I mean, I was kind of selling Michael Thomas or not buying Michael Thomas for the most part. I thought he was he's the opposite of Randall Cobb. He's about the same age as Randall Cobb for crying out. He's older while everybody thinks he's younger, because he came in the league as an old prospect. He's a little bit like Terry McLaurin like that, where we think Terry McLaurin, he's young. He's like almost 26 years old too. He's like as old as Amari Cooper, right. So it's like funny, you think of Amari's been in the league like 6 years, same age as, it's like Juju right now is 2 years younger than Dwayne Eskridge, I think. I'm not sure. I got to check those ages. But, so age kind of matters, and he's getting a little old. And now with this ankle injury, you lose him for this year. The best case scenario is he comes back fine, but I don't suspect that he's going to come back fine. That sounds ugly. I mean, he thought he could, get through it, couldn't. It's ugly. I mean, I guess if you have him and you can't sell him, you got to hold him. I guess I'm holding him until he does something this year. And then selling him, I guess, is the way you got to play it. Unless you can get something for him now. If you get a single first, I'd move him for a single first.
I think that's fair.
I sold one share in our Dynasty League, the Hardway League, and I traded him for like the 108 and the 2nd rounder. That was good. And then I had one more share that we discussed my trade. I just think that he's a guy you can't really trust. The timing of this surgery is one of the weirdest things I've seen this offseason. The fact that he didn't have it right after the playoff loss is just beyond me. And now, Peyton's calling him out. I think it's a mess, and I think I want to stay away from it. I just think he's a guy you can't trust. And, we've seen guys shine bright and then fade out of the league. I could see that with Michael Thomas as well. Nothing would surprise me with Michael Thomas.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, he's kind of got that little bit of a diva attitude. And in fairness, a lot of top wide receivers have that. The question is can they learn to play with it or not? True. Yeah. What do you think is a pin action in New Orleans, Jax? What do you think is how is the offense gonna play out from Michael Thomas missing the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season?
Well, it was funny. Before the injury, I was leaning Jameis Winston to start. I wasn't sure, but I thought Jameis would start. I actually still think that they're going to share time, which is why that it might be a little bit messy. I think that, if they're up 20, or on the goal line, there's going to be some Taysom Hill, plays, so to speak, or time. And if they're down 20, that's Jameis time, YOLO, let's go. So there's certain game situations I think they're going to definitely play, but I think they lean more now towards a Taysom Hill type of team where they're going to have to run and ball control. I mean, they don't have any weapons, like none of their weapons are proven, like zero, except for Kamara. But, none of their pass game weapons. I mean, Traquan has been very efficient, but invisible often. Marquez Callaway is promising, but has done nothing in the league. Everybody, including myself, really like Troutman, but he did literally zero. I mean, he's just hasn't done anything yet. I mean, it's a projection. We think we like him, but so I think with all that being said and no proven targets, I think they're going to want to run the ball more and pass the ball less, which would make sense. They've got a good defense. They've got a good offensive line, and they do have Taysom Hill, who is the ultimate sort of, RPO, run it and ball control quarterback. So, I mean, I think it skews a little bit more Taysom Hill, which is a little bit ugly. I'm not so sure, that Alvin Kamara, I assume they'll want to feed the ball to Alvin Kamara more, but when Taysom played last year, Alvin Kamara's targets plummeted, and predictably because of the way that Taysom Hill plays. So I'm a little bit nervous there about everybody, and I'll probably just fade them all in redraft for the most part, unless someone lets them fall late. I'll snap up those weapons in the passing game at value.
Right. I think that's a good take, especially on Kamara, because one of the things I think with Kamara is we're going to, his touch count might remain the same, but that's going to be targets going down at the expense of, rushes going up.
Yeah.
And with a target being worth 2.5, 3 times what a rush is,
2x.
Yep. That's going to cost you. With even if he gets the same touch load, he's not going to get the same fantasy points. And, in the actual NFL, it might work out okay for the Saints to do it that way, but it's just not going to work out as well for us as fantasy players.
Yep. It's certainly a possibility. I mean, it's also possible that somehow or another they find offensive success with all this, and Kamara scores touchdowns and does get enough targets. I mean, the one thing you can say is that, I've heard a few people mention this, and I'm just not sure. I mean, I don't have a strong take either way, but that you'll see some Latavius Murray in the backfield, Kamara in the slot. I suppose that's possible. We haven't seen that either, so there's no way to predict that. So that's a tough one to predict. So we'll see, man. I'm nervous. Let's put it that way. But I'm always nervous.
Yeah.
So Theo, we can go. I'll let you pick here. We can go 2 different ways. He talked Troutman there. We can go the tight end route, or we can talk about a bit of anatomy, whether we're talking running backs or receivers. I'll let you take the direction.
Yeah, I'd love to pivot over to this anatomy of a wide receiver and running back. I'm going to retweet it after the show if anyone's watching. But it's just fantastic threads that Jax put together, where he really broke down what makes up the anatomy of a wide receiver 1 or 2 profile. Maybe you could just briefly talk about a couple of those points on the anatomy, and then pivot over to this year's rookie class of wide receivers, who we're all pretty excited about. Interested to see guys that fit into your profile, and maybe some guys you're just super excited about in this class.
Yeah, that's fair. So the anatomy series was something that I did. I remember when I started to get into analytics, it all made a lot of sense to me, but I also heard a lot of people say it doesn't make any sense to them and it's fucking stupid. And I understood that, because you'd hear someone say the R squared of, breakout age under 20 is this. And, it was like, what the hell are you nerds talking about? And, it's true, right? So a lot of the analytics that, some of these really, really smart, sharp guys who really know what the hell they're doing put out is unrecognizable as actionable information. And so I thought, well, what are they talking about? And, look for some of the simple things that, rather than being predictive, we're trying to just identify a player. So what I did is just to give you what I did, I took the top 24, dynasty wide receivers, and I did that by like ADP. I didn't pick them myself. It was like composite rankings and ADP I kind of put together. And so it was basically what the community, the general consensus was of who the top 24 dynasty wide receivers are. And then I just, I looked at a lot of different criteria. And, like for instance, draft capital, of all 24, like only like 2 were not taken in the first 3 rounds. It's like, oh, really? So draft capital matters. It's like, okay. And then breakout age, all of them except for like 3 had a breakout age of 20 or less. In other words, they showed in college, and most of them were either 18 or 19 years old. Oh, interesting. Almost all of them, except for a couple, were early declares, right? So you just start looking at all these things. You start stacking them together. And if a player hits all of these things, I guess he's maybe – I haven't looked at it in terms of predictability. I'm not trying to predict anything. I'm just trying to not get fooled. If a guy comes out of college and he hits none of these metrics, none of these things are what he is, and you're like, he's going to be great, you're probably wrong. You can think that all you want, but you're probably wrong. So, we look at basically early college production. So were they able to dominate on their team at an age of basically by a sophomore? I actually do look at their sophomore season as to whether or not they were able to put some production on the field by their sophomore season. Guys who don't do it until their senior year are very dangerous propositions. The first round is littered with senior wide receiver prospects, which is what's scary about Devontae Smith. Now, is that actually scary about Devontae Smith? Not really, because he doesn't look a whole lot like other senior wide receivers who came out. He actually looks a little bit different. So he's likely to be an outlier in that regard, and I'm betting on him. But it's a reason for pause. And you just look at those things and go, okay, is this a concern? And it's just a way to identify concerns so that you don't get blindsided by, oh, I didn't see that shit coming. So that's really what it is.
No, it's awesome. It's definitely worth a look. Which wide receivers in this class hit some boxes, and which are some guys that you're really bullish on and really want to have on your dynasty teams?
So Jamar Chase, obviously, I mean, he hits everything, right? Early draft capital, size, early breakout age, early domination, athletic, size, everything. He's perfect. So he hits perfect. One of the guys that's kind of, and of course he does, right? He's a junior coming out who's the number 1 overall, but he's not a Kevin White. You look at these guys. Kevin White didn't hit any of these things, right? So the other guy that I think is Terrace Marshall. Terrace Marshall, yes. And then one more is Nico Collins. Nico Collins and Terrace Marshall right now are the 2 guys that if you look at them, they hit just a lot of the criteria of what these guys tend to look like 2-3 years down the road. So I like Terrace Marshall a lot, and I'm buying him everywhere I can. He's a smash in the second round every single time.
I knew you were going to say Terrace. And thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Dan has loaded up on Terrace Marshall across pretty much all his dynasty leagues. That's been his big guy this soft season. So great minds think alike on that one. Nico
Dynasty,
Collins,
redraft, best ball, you name it. I got Terrace everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, why is it so unlikely that Terrace Marshall can start to eat into Robbie Anderson's production in year 1? I mean,
right.
Why? What has Robbie
exactly.
Anderson ever done? He had one dynamic season. That's it. Every other season has been, field stretching, zero.
He's shown flashes and all that kind of stuff, But yeah, and that's one of the things I like doing actually, especially in best ball leagues, is I pair up Robbie Anderson and Terrace Marshall. It's kind of the now and later proposition.
Yep.
You got Robbie for now, you got Terrace for later.
Yeah, I'll sell Robbie Anderson right now at his value. He's a huge sell for me. So I know.
Yeah, in Dynasty, I think the way to go, if what I'm doing right now, because I've got some Robbie in Dynasty too, is because I liked the price last year. And so I've still hung on to him. But when they took Terrace, I'm like, okay, that was kind of one of those things I filed away. Let's let Robbie start off with 2-3 good games and then get out there and sell, because I think Terrace is going to be the guy who, like you said, starts eating into his targets and everything else as the season goes along.
Yeah, I think it's got a little bit of a parallel with T. Higgins, where a guy kind of, you think it's a crowded receiver room, but he's got the draft capital, he's got the size. He certainly broke out at a young age with talented wide receivers around him. I think there's a ton to like about Terrace Marshall. I think that's a great call. And then even if he doesn't cut into Robbie Anderson, we're all kind of projecting DJ Moore to take on some of those Curtis Samuel targets and maybe, take a step forward. Maybe it's another 3-man split. and we see Robbie and Terrace and DJ Moore all get work. Any way you cut it, there's a lot of ways for Terrace to produce right away. And, a year from now, if Robbie Anderson's out the door, I mean, he could be a guy who just flies up. So I love that call. But touch on Nico Collins a bit. And I know some people are on Nico, and I love hearing that.
Robbie Anderson was drafted in. No, I'm going to go to Nico. Robbie Anderson was drafted in the Scott Fish Bowl in almost every league as a wide receiver 3 or better. And so what that tells me, the latest he was picked was wide receiver 43. I mean, he was drafted right around early 30s, wide receiver 30s. And so what that tells me is that everybody thinks he's going to have a big season, right? I mean, he's not slipping past anybody. He's I think that's a little bit overzealous, especially when you consider who's going around those picks. And so for that reason, I think his value is there right now, because if he stumbles out of the gate, good luck selling him early in the season, because some people might go, oh, fuck yeah, that's Robbie Anderson. I remember that's, right? So
we've already seen him with this QB too. You know what I mean? Like they've played together. We've seen what that looks like.
That's right. It could get worse with him. That's right. Exactly. So anyway, I'm with you 100%. And in terms of Nico, I mean, Nico was one of those guys that you have to put context around. Mm-hmm. He was a big time recruit coming out of high school, went to Michigan, and then was Harbaugh'd. I mean, they're terrible there. I mean, look at even Donovan Peoples-Jones came out of there and was a whole lot better than I think everybody thought he was. Donovan Peoples-Jones was the first wide receiver of his class going to Michigan. When he went to Michigan, he was the number one wide receiver in his high school class. He got crushed by Michigan. I think Nico Collins did as well. Nico is 6'4", 215. He's got that huge body. He did, break out at his 19-year-old season, had a great sophomore season. Again, you have to put context to this. That team was awful, but he did perform in a way that was like, his percentage of that shitty offense was okay, So I think he's got the raw tools. I think he's a player that wins on the outside. I don't think he had a quarterback that could throw it to the outside. He measured big, and then he also was athletic, right? He ran a 4.45 or something like that. So he's fast. He's big. I don't know. I mean, he kind of hits everything. He was drafted in the 3rd round, so anything day 1 or day 2 is great. The breakout age, it's all there. He also has opportunity. He may be the number 1 there, so he could have early production as well. So it's a good time to buy him right now. You may be able to buy him at value right now and then sell him even as early as this year for more than he's probably worth.
Guys, if you're watching or listening, even if you're watching this later, in the comments, let us know what you're doing with these guys. We're talking about, these 2 receivers. We talked about Rodgers. We talked about Adams. Let us know what you guys are doing with these guys, in your leagues, on your rosters. We want to hear your feedback too.
Yeah, and we'll just keep it going. Talk about a little bit briefly on the anatomy of an RB. I believe you had it as a top 15 RB, which I liked because you get to it's such a thin margins. You're really looking at top guys when you go for top 15. I thought that was a sharp way of doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. You want to look at elite. Go ahead though. Ask me. Yeah.
No. I think you can expand upon why you went 15 and not 24 in case anybody doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I did it in 2020 and 20. I did 12 and 15. In 21, I did 15. I mean, I know it's all arbitrary, but ultimately, I'm just trying to take the upper crust, the real elite of the elite. Part of the reason I expanded it from 12 to 15 this year is because of Akers, JT, Swift, Dobbins, CEH. I mean, all those guys. I mean, CEH didn't even make the damn list. I mean, he was right there on the edge. RB, Antonio Gibson. So there was a big class, and I felt like, cutting them off. I even felt bad cutting CH off. I actually did it, on purpose. I wanted to fucking trigger everybody, but you know what I mean? I was like going to do 16 with CH. I was like, fuck it. I can't wait. This is gonna be great. But yeah, you want to look at what an elite running back is, because really those are the difference makers. Because after that, it gets thin every year. Like every single year after 15, sometimes 10, sometimes 16, whatever. Somewhere they don't call it the running back dead zone for nothing. So those guys are the guys you're looking for. If you just name the players, people start nodding their heads like, yeah, dude. It's like CMC, Dalvin, Kamara, Saquon, JT, Derrick Henry, Chubb, Akers, Zeke, Swift, Miles Sanders, pour one out, Antonio Gibson, Aaron Jones, Jacobs, and Dobbins. So, I mean, you can start to look at maybe CH and a couple different people jumping in. Now it's Najee Harris, right? Now it's Najee, right? But in any event, you look at those guys. The biggest thing that I've always looked at is draft capital, and production and size-adjusted speed. Look, Kareem Hunt, Josh Jacobs, even Javonte Williams are great backs. But if you look at these guys, they all ran pretty fast. Each and every one of them was, above a 4, below a 4.55. They're running in the 4.4s. Obviously, JT, Gibson, 4.38, 4.39, just blazing at size at 220, 230 pounds. Nick Chubb, 220, 230 pounds, running 4.45. Like, these guys are super athletes who can break away. As a running back, yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of tackle breaking a la David Montgomery. But if Montgomery were a little bit faster, he'd be taking that shit to the house because he's a great tackle breaker, but he just can't break away from NFL linebackers. So that's one of the things I look at. So draft capital, athleticism, and early college production.
Got to go trade. And again, like you get to those low end RB2s. I'll take a term that our Dynasty League mate Davis Maddock used, is a purgatory player. You're not looking for those, low end RB2s. Right. You get a lot of those on your Dynasty roster, and you're never contending. So I think that's awesome. So maybe talk about a little bit. We have the big three in this class, and then we have a couple other running backs that people are excited about. How do you view this rookie running back class, and which guys are you really targeting to get on your Dynasty teams?
Well, I think Javonte Williams is the Cam Akers of this draft class as he keeps falling. I have like the 110 in a lot of Superflex leagues for whatever reason, just, trades or whatever. I've just been sitting at that 110. I kind of maybe even made some moves to get inside that top 10 a few times because I looked at it as the 5 quarterbacks, Pitts, Chase, and the 3 running backs. So I figured 110 was going to be one of those guys, and I really don't care which one it is. You guys can let whoever you want fall to me, and I'll take ETN or Mac Jones, great, whoever, right? So a lot of the times it's been Javonte Williams just, tumbling to me at pick 110. And, he hits a lot of these boxes. One of the big ones I didn't mention as I'm sharing this with you was receiving ability. Most of these guys, you want you mentioned it. A target is worth 2.5 times a carry. So you want guys that are going to be targeted. Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb. Imagine if they got targeted. Like Derrick Henry obviously would have been the cleared running back 1. He wasn't the running back 1. Like, was he running back 4 or 5? I mean, right? I mean, right, yeah. Like dude ran for 2,000 yards and 38 touchdowns. I mean, I don't know what he ended up with, but and he still wasn't RB1. So he had his absolute ceiling isn't RB1, and that's because of the reception. So Javonte did see those receptions, even splitting time in a backfield. He saw 25 catches, even splitting time with a passing down back like Michael Carter. So he clearly can catch the ball and is a valuable target, out in space. So he's a very tantalizing prospect, especially at value.
You and Dan are right in line because Dan has called him the running back that everybody's going to want from this class. And I think you guys are perfectly in line with that one. How about Najee Harris, Travis Etienne?
Well, by the way, Travis Etienne is like the model. I mean, he hits every part of it. Like, he's amazing. I mean, he was dope. The only concern we have for Etienne is a little bit of that film grade where it's like sometimes he's a little bit, he's pulling a lot of spin moves and shit where it's like, what are you doing, bro? So there's a little bit of those decision-making qualities that you can, but he can be coached, and if he can be used more in space, which it sounds like they're going to use him like Kadarius Toney, brilliant. But it's like if they can use him in space a little bit more, a little bit like a Kamara. I don't think he's as quite a good a pass catcher as Kamara, but he did catch a lot of passes and he's electric in space. So if they do use him smartly, he could be absolutely dynamic in the NFL. So Etienne was huge. With Harris, he actually doesn't hit a lot of the metrics. I mean, he's a senior. Didn't really break out. I mean, you got to make some excuses for him. Damian Harris, Josh Jacobs are in front of him. He couldn't or didn't chose not to test. Those Alabama guys were like, we're from Alabama. We're dope. We're going in the first round. So suck it, and who can blame him, right? I mean, I don't blame him.
They have nothing to gain. Nothing to gain.
Absolutely zero. Yeah.
Yep.
So I thought they made the right decision because they got everything they wanted. But selfishly, I wanted to see if he was a 4.52 or a 4.72, right? I mean,
Yep.
I would guess he's probably not either, and he's probably about as fast as Javonte. So I think he's dope. He's got amazing feet. Najee Harris is just. I mean, you look at him play, he's got amazing feet. And the thing that I love about him is he's big, right? So he can play goal line, he can play short yardage, he's going to be on every down. But he's also maybe the best pass catching back in this entire draft. And I'm even talking about including Kenny Gainwell. I mean, he's a really, really talented receiver.
Yeah, I think he's going to shine as a receiver, and he's also got this incredible wingspan, which he's got one of the longest wingspans of any running back in the NFL right now. It's kind of interesting in this class. You have, Pitts and Harris, two of the higher drafted rookies, are just these incredibly long arm guys. So I think Harris has a tremendous floor because of that, and I think he'll get a ton of volume as much as he can handle. So I have a lot of him in Dynasty. I'm hoping he comes through. How about Trey Sermon and Michael Carter, two guys who I'll say are really moving up the boards in redraft. In FFPC, you're seeing Trey Sermon go off the board pretty much every 6th round. Michael Carter's been a 7th round draft pick. Now that he steps in and he's the starting running back day one in Jets camp, I think you'll start seeing him occasionally go in the back end of the 6th. What is your take on those two guys? More of a dynasty focus for them, but maybe you could touch on their impact in redraft as well.
Yeah, I mean, Raheem Mostert, who played a total of like 50, had a total of like 50 rushes for 7 different teams before landing in San Francisco, was completely dope there. So honestly, any running back, whomever it is in San Francisco, has value. I mean, it's just it feels like, right? I mean, you name it. You name the guy, they've been good. Like every one of them. Jeff Wilson. Who the fuck is Jeff? I mean, who's Jeff Wilson? Hasty, like Tevin Coleman, like whomever was doing it. McKinnon was great. Like every single guy who touches the ball out of the backfield there is productive. So, I mean, a little bit of the problem is it seems like it's never the same guy. I think they do like to rotate, play the hot hand, play the healthy guy. So I'm not so sure what's going to happen there. I'm a little bit uncertain. But if you told me right now that Trey Sermon was going to get over 200 touches in his rookie season, I'd be moving him into my top 20 running backs in Dynasty. I mean, the touches are just kind of an issue. In terms of Michael Carter, what's interesting is a lot of people call him small. He is small, but actually what we look at in the anatomy series is less about exactly size, but more BMI. BMI is more important, in my opinion, than height. So he's short, which is okay, but he's also a little bit stocky. He's over 200 pounds. He clears that benchmark, and he's got enough BMI. So I think he may be able to carry a little bit more work than we suspect. I've always felt like the biggest issue is not whether or not we think he can handle the load. It's whether or not the coaches think he can handle the load. Because if he's not playing every down, then he's not going to be an every down player. Kind of a obvious statement, but it's true.
And this is the one guy at the position that this coaching staff drafted. And you got to like what they're doing for the running game out there in New York.
I think he's worth a dart throw here and there. It was funny because I was taking Terrace Marshall above them both. That could end up being a mistake. I don't know. But in a lot of situations, when I was on the clock where they would normally go, they're already gone. Like, so that, early mid second there, right after the wide receivers, Waddle's coming off and everything. A lot of times they just be gone. I'd take like Bateman, Elijah Moore, or Marshall.
Bateman, love Bateman.
Yep.
Is there any other running backs in this class? I know you mentioned Kenny Gainwell. Any other guys that maybe might be off of people's radars that you're keeping an eye on or rostering?
It's a good question. I don't know if I was exactly ready for that question, but
yeah, I just throwing it out there.
No, I'm just trying to think. I was a huge Elijah Mitchell fan, and he also joins that San Francisco backfield. I was kind of hoping he'd find a little bit of a smoother path to touches but it may be a little bit better than we think. Like, I think he might be a year 2 guy where it's like Sermon and Elijah Mitchell next year. That's very reasonable and possible. But he was a guy that I was targeting late. Kenny Gainwell a little bit. I think the class was terrible. I mean, we were looking at Jamar Jefferson and Kylan Hill. I thought Kylan Hill was pretty good. Both those guys I've got stashed in a lot of spots because they're just so cheap. So I just tend to think that if you go back and you look at each draft class, like just go back and like look at like draft history and just look at the running backs taken in any draft class or all draft classes, and you'll just see like 2 or 3 guys that are at all relevant. And every year there's all these guys, and the longer you've played Dynasty, you'll go back and be like, oh, I remember him. I thought he was good. Oh, yeah, he sucks. Like every year, there's like 4 or 5 of those guys that were like Jamar Jefferson, bro. And, it's not our fault. Ooh, pour one out too soon. But yeah, like every year, like you can just go up and down. There's just a million of them. Like, I was a Keith Marshall guy or whatever his name was. It's usually shit if they're after round, 4 even, so it's an uphill climb. The James Robinson doesn't happen every year. Everybody asks, who's this year's James Robinson? It's fucking nobody.
Right.
It's no one. Exactly.
Well, apparently it's Jamal Williams, but
yeah, good one.
But I digress. What do you think about Chuba Hubbard? He's somebody that I kind of grab onto just because I think if he'd have come out in 2020, he'd have been, a high draft pick and everything else, So those are the kind of guys where if they fall, I'm still going to get out there, take a chance on them, see what happens, just because there was something that would have made him a high draft pick, I think, the year before, and it's not always their fault. It doesn't always work out. You got your Bryce Loves out there.
Yeah.
But usually it's an injury or something like that, that causes a Bryce Love to never be any good. But, Chuba, I don't know.
Hey, I'm known as the receipt king. I could receipt king my ass, and I'd go back and I had JT, Swift, Dobbins, Akers, Najee Harris, ETN, and Chuba Hubbard. That was that little group heading into that draft. And then ETN, Hubbard, and Najee all went back to school.
Right.
And that group was like, I was calling it the best running back class ever. And it probably would have been. It might be still. But, it was like that class. I was like, dude, you could have a late first Akers, and you're still going to get a stud. And Hubbard was right there, man. So I'm with you 100%. He made a huge mistake going back. Now he's parked behind CMC. Obviously, the road to touches are nil. Tough. Yeah, I mean, injury basically only. Now, I'll say if CMC got hurt, I'm going to be kicking myself for having faded Hubbard everywhere. But seriously, man, unbelievable. That'd be a great spot. But yeah, it's a little bit of one of those things where I think it is a little bit of a Bryce Love story. You're great analogy.
And just to add to what you talked about earlier, you got to look at where these guys are going, like Chuba, Elijah Mitchell, Ramondre Stevenson. You talked about the receiver position and draft capital. Pass around 3, there's not much. So you look at opportunity cost when you grab one of these guys. What are you missing out on? Tutu Atwell? You know what I mean? Yes. One of these guys hit. You could. One of these guys really hit. Somebody gets hurt or something. That's a league winner right there. Where Atwell has a couple games, maybe. I don't know.
It's going to be funny when we're like 2-3 years down the road and, LA, the Rams have Tutu Atwell. We'll look up and be like, dude, they could have had Terrace Marshall.
Right.
Yeah. They passed on Terrace right in front of him. I'm like, they picked Tutu. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, Terrace Marshall. Dude, the draft kills me every year.
Andy Isabella, DK Metcalf vibe.
Right.
Yes,
small guy with a
absolutely.
big guy.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Just DK
probably would have sucked in Arizona. Kyler would have hated him.
Yeah, totally.
It was doomed to failure.
Oh, imagine DK in Arizona with Kyler. Jesus.
It would be scary this year. It would be absolutely scary.
Unbelievable.
So I just wanted to pivot over to redraft again. I really enjoyed hearing what you had to say about the tight end position. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on how you're approaching the position this year in redraft, and maybe touch on a couple of those guys that I know you're excited about that might, not necessarily the Kelseys and the Kittles, but guys maybe a little bit later that you think have, potentially high win rates.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, look, I'm a Logan Thomas guy. I felt really good about Logan Thomas. Justin Boone didn't really agree with me, and he asked for my case, and I gave it, and I'll give it again if you'd like. But basically, when you look at Logan Thomas, he led the NFL in snap percentage from the tight end position last year, which is an astounding stat when you think about Kelsey and Waller. I mean, Waller played in every down. I mean, he was unbelievable. Logan Thomas outsnapped everybody. He was the absolute number one trusted tight end in the NFL. He was, I think I shared this with you, he was 6.1 yards per target, which is not good. Okay, it's not good, but 6.1 on a team that was 5.7 yards per attempt. I mean, woof. 5.7 yards per attempt is, I mean, that's awful. They threw 16 total touchdown passes as a team. Like, that's fucking crazy. He had 6 of them. So he had 40% of the team's touchdowns. He was above their average in terms of per target. Now, instead of 5.7, Ryan Fitzpatrick over his last 3 seasons had averaged 7.9 yards per attempt. So you go from 5.7 to 7.9. We should see that 6.1 go up because, of course, Fitzpatrick's able to stay in the pocket a little longer and hit his players down the field. And he especially has no problem throwing it to a player who's quote-unquote covered. And I think a lot of times those tight ends are kind of covered, but they're open because you just have to throw it up. And he's 6'6", 255 pounds. He runs a 4.5, 4.6. I mean, he's blazing fast, super athletic, can jump out of the gym, long arms. Physically, I'm not saying he is. Physically, he looks like Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts. I mean, I'm not saying he's that player. Don't get it twisted. But I'm saying that's the kind of athlete you're looking at. Not quite, but pretty damn close. Very fast, very long, very athletic. Can go up and get it. That's why he was targeted top 5 in the red zone at the tight end position on a team that wasn't in the red zone, for Christ's sakes. So he's a player that is going to get a lot more touchdown opportunities, I believe, and a lot more downfield opportunities. He saw 4 or more targets in every single game last year. He saw well over 100 targets. People are saying Curtis Samuel is going to come in. Curtis Samuel is going to replace the Sims brothers, and Diami Brown is fine, but he's going to be a tertiary option. It's going to be Samuel, McLaurin, and Thomas. Those are your guys. Those are your 3 very, very consolidated target share. McKissick, I would bet anybody that he does not see 110 targets again. I would bet under 80. I'd take under on 80. Anybody want to bet? I mean, so I think he's gonna come back down to earth. They're better off targeting Antonio Gibson anyway. I think if Gibson's targets goes up, I think Thomas will see somewhere in that 100 to 125 targets with better value to them. He was the tight end 5 last year. He's got pure tight end 3 upside, and I think he's got good floor. Even if he doesn't hit, you're drafting him at tight end 9, 10, 11, 12. I think he's a great pick there. He's my gatekeeper of the tight ends. If I don't get him, I'm just letting them all go by, and I'll take Jarwin, Tanyan, players like that later. Gerald Everett.
Yes.
Speaking of, guys, we're on the clock. Just saying, a little double tap on the.
We are on the clock. There you go.
Double tap on the tight end spot there. With a little stack on the side.
Yeah, but I think Logan Thomas is he's the new 7-Eleven, always open.
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me of a little bit of the Waller situation last year.
Mm-hmm.
Before last year, everybody was telling me Darren Waller was a one-hit wonder, and I was gobbling up all the Waller. And Waller took me to a lot of championships last year because I was drafting him at value last year. A lot of people thought he was overvalued heading into the year. Turned out he was vastly undervalued. So that one was right. And I think Logan Thomas is the same. Last year, my 2 tight end calls were Darren Waller and TJ Hawkinson. And I added some Logan, but really it was Hawkinson and Waller because Waller was the guy. If I didn't get Waller, Hawkinson was going outside the top 12 last year. It was absolutely ridiculous. Ended up at tight end 5, I think, 4, 5, 6, whatever. I think it was 5. But both him and Logan Thomas were top 5, and Waller was, obviously tight end 2. So I see the same thing again. I'm totally happy investing in Logan Thomas on a much better passing offense where the coaches trusted him. They just gave him a new contract, for crying out loud. He is there. He is absolutely going to be a part of that offense.
I like it, man.
Yeah. And if you weren't convinced before, I mean, that contract has to say something to you.
Yeah.
They don't just hand those things out to anybody. That's a contract that says this guy is a key player on our team. You know,
bingo.
So follow the money on that.
And then, is there any other tight ends that you want to touch upon that how are you approaching the top players at tight end? Are they guys you're targeting in the first 2 rounds, or are you kind of pumping the brakes a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey was Kelsey was the undrafted name my podcast. He was the undrafted MVP of fantasy last year. I felt like if you owned Travis Kelsey in any format, you were very likely a winner. And whenever I say that, everybody goes, yeah, my Travis Kelsey team won the chip last year. You know what I mean? Like, everybody I tell that to is like, yeah, that's true. I won when I had Travis Kelsey. Of course you did, because he was, he was dope, and he was by far the tight end 1. He doubled up the tight end 3. So, it was only him or Waller at tight end.
With Kittle injured, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, Kittle was injured. Yep.
Yes. Kittle was injured. So, I mean, obviously, look, I'm the original OG Kittle truther. I've got the receipts on that one. But I do, man. Kittle's the dog. And as a matter of fact, Kittle's probably the best value in this in redrafts and best ball right now, because Kelsey and Waller do have that ceiling, and they go early, but then sometimes you can get Kittle in round 3. And it's like, man, that if he hits, his ceiling, you got, like you say, you could have a CMC Aaron Jones Kittle. Whew, sign me up.
Well, he's the only one in that top tier that still has room to move up,
Right. That's right. Yes. Yeah. You're drafting Kelsey to win.
Sword. He's the guy who can, if there's going to be a monster in San Francisco, it's going to be Kittle.
Yes.
But on the other hand, he's his own worst enemy with his playing style. And, that's the only thing that holds you back. But basically on a per game, if Kittle is playing, you have to have him in your lineup, and you expect him to go off, not just have him in your lineup. You expect him to be one of the guys who's carrying your lineup that week. Yeah.
Kittle's my favorite player in the entire NFL. You talked about his play style. I mean, it's the greatest. I remember,
and one of the few guys who would actually talk to the cardboard cutouts.
He's fantastic. I remember when he got drafted, he was a 5th round pick. He didn't produce much in college, and then his first year, he was unbelievable on a per play basis, on a per target basis, on a yak basis. Like, he was dope, and people were still sleeping on him. And I was like, what is going on? I'm like, I have a couple of tight end 1 after that season Kittle tweets, and I love pulling those suckers out. But I remember saying, like, it was because, I don't know if you remember his headshot, but his name was George Kittle. He was a white guy who looked like a science teacher. Everybody was like, no, I'm out on this guy. But I was like, no, he's a fucking animal. Like, are you watching the games? So I don't think people necessarily knew exactly what he was. And he was the true definition of the word sleeper when he was coming up.
Well, yeah, 5th round pick. I mean, there are not many tight ends who come out of the 5th round.
No.
That is a rare hit right there.
Yep. Yeah, unless they're position changers like Waller, Antonio Gates, Logan Thomas, these types of guys, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's the only way you can be looking at a guy like that.
Well, I know we're getting late into the show, but I wanted to get your guys, your main redraft guys this year. Guys, specifically looking at the first couple of rounds of guys you really want to have exposure to on your teams.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll look at my most owned in best ball. One of my favorite, tight end is Logan Thomas. My 2 most owned wide receivers are Cortland Sutton and Gabe Davis. Cortland Sutton right now, what is the deal with, why are we fading Cortland Sutton so much? I mean, are you guys Cortland Sutton fans?
Especially where he's going. He's
I get it with Cortland Sutton for sure. I'm neither fading him nor am I super targeting him, but I think he's going in a fair place. I think if he had a better quarterback situation, I would feel a lot better about him. That's the thing that's holding back for me.
But that's also why his price is where it is.
Right, exactly. And I do expect him to start a little bit slow. Coming off the ACL, that's often the case, is that people will be a little bit slow, the first 3-4 weeks, whatever. But, you can build around that. So, it's something where if I'm taking Sutton, I'm not necessarily counting on a ton out of him for the first month of the season. I'm looking for other options there. And then, that's where I want to start working him in is, once we hit October, November.
He's going at wide receiver 31 behind Robbie Anderson.
Yeah. Okay. Right behind Robbie Anderson.
I mean, no, seriously. If you think that I'm taking fucking Robbie Anderson ahead of Cortland Sutton, what are you, crazy? Like this is redraft. This is best ball, underdog best ball right now. I'm looking at it.
But Robbie Anderson's quarterback.
Jack.
Oh, wait, never mind.
I was just looking at FFPC, Scott, and it's funny you talk about underdog because I've been doing, a few underdogs. I still have some of those puppies running from catching them right at the end. And Sutton's going super. He's even going after Judy the last couple that I've done.
Yes.
Whereas now I'm looking the main event on Fantasy Mojo. He's going like 6th round, around Claypool, Juju, Beckham.
Yeah, he's often going after Juju.
So FFPC, they're a little sharper on Sutton, and they're grabbing him a little earlier.
Right.
Yeah, you would have asked a little bit earlier too, or excuse me, in the show sheet about players I'm buying. Juju Smith-Schuster is a buy.
Yes, sir.
What the hell is going on?
Trade for you, buddy. I got a trade. I'm holding it, and it involves all these guys you're talking about. F1, Juju.
Tell me about it.
About it now? All right.
Yeah.
The reason I want to talk about this trade, not because I like to talk about my trades. That's also true. But who doesn't, right? No,
Yeah.
But you said something at the beginning of the show, Jax, that I think is huge. And you talked about, I think it was Adams, where you said, like, how much higher can he go?
Right.
And I find that those are my favorite guys to sell. And look, maybe sometimes you're wrong and you make a move like, send DK in a package where you're getting Michael Thomas and Winston back in a super flex or something stupid like that. Yeah. And now you're regretting it. But Stephon Diggs is a guy that last year you were getting at really good value.
Yes.
He can't go much higher. He was wasn't he receiver 1? I believe he was the wide receiver 1. So,
1 or 2, right.
So yeah, I lost Thomas in this is Trade Addicts 5. Lost Thomas, I had Diggs, and very thin at receiver, and I had no F1, and I've been trying to get F1 off of Russ Outhouse for like 2-3 years now in that league, and he put out a thing in our DM saying, if you guys send me an offer and I put it on Twitter and my side wins,
I heard that.
Accept it, So I was like, this is my chance to get F1. I was so busy, and I was like, I'm sending him something. So anyways, right. I sent him this trade. It was Diggs, Elijah Mitchell, who you talked about, and a little side note, he had Mostert. So I thought if I throw Mitchell in there, it's helping him out at running back. I threw a 2023 second, and I got Juju and F1 back.
Woo! What a great trade.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Awesome, JD.
So again, just to talk about that pivot move, if you've got a guy that's at the top and you need depth, it's a good way to pivot if you can get the right pieces and add depth without necessarily losing the production from that player.
Juju is such a buy low. I mean, he is going almost after pick 80. He's going to pick 79, ADP of 79 in underdog best ball, and that's been coming down. He's going behind. I just don't get it.
He's free money, man. He's free money, dude.
I don't understand it.
I've drafted a ton of Juju in redraft. He's been kind of an auto pick for me in the 7th round, unless I really, really needed a positional need. Juju in the 7th is just like, what are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
And I like Deontay. I like Claypool. But Juju's shown it. Juju's coming back to Pittsburgh on a 1-year contract to be with Big Ben. Kind of like one last hurrah for Big Ben and Juju. And I think, that we've already seen him finish as a top 5 wide receiver. And, you're getting him in the 7th round. He's still very young. And then Dynasty, he's probably going to be worth a lot more next offseason than he is this offseason. People are just kind of down on him despite wide receiver 20. And, people are acting like he's done.
Let me ask you guys this question. Each of you can answer quick. If you had to bet you're going to win $1 million if you're right, put these 3 in order: Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, in terms of who's getting the most targets next year.
I'm going Juju first,
Wow.
Deontay second, and Claypool third.
What about you?
So I might go Deontay first on targets. I think Juju might have more meaningful targets, and then Claypool will be 3rd most targeted. I do think Claypool is interesting because he's going to get the deep balls and he's also going to get some red zone looks. So I can see the appeal there. It's kind of like the mystery box, but I don't have nearly as much as I do Juju. And Deontay also is going in the 5th round, and Juju is going in the 7th. So it's kind of like, the opportunity cost of taking Deontay in the 5th round, you're passing up, guys with, I think, a lot higher ceiling in terms of PPR points. So, yeah, I think Juju's certainly the best value, and I think that he absolutely could be the leader right there this year. So I love that call. And Dan's been on that one as well, as a JD.
Yeah, and you're also passing up on guys who don't have Claypool and Juju on their roster fighting them for targets, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I just think, I would never bet that Claypool is going to lead in targets. Now, he was a touchdown scorer. He's a deep target. He's an amazing athlete. Like, I get the upside with Claypool.
I'll put it this way. I would be a lot more comfortable betting on who's going to get the least targets than betting on who's going to get the most.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's
the most is definitely going to be you or Deontay, and take your pick,
Right. So my point is that Deontay and Juju are going to see, you'd have to flip a coin to see who's going to get more targets. And then if I said who's going to score more touchdowns, who's going to get more yards, you'd be like, I don't know. It's pretty close.
I was going to do this to you when you asked the question. Like, here, just roll the dice.
It's pretty close. Yet they're going 3 rounds apart. Juju's like, I just don't get it. Like, he's definitely – look, I understand the concern, but I have the same concerns for DJ and Claypool. Look, if Claypool somehow isn't as efficient and only sees the same number of targets or the same target share next year, if Ben is degraded, or if we unfortunately see the corpse of Dwayne Haskins or Mason Rudolph or some shit, it's a problem. So first of all, if that happens, which is more likely on that team than any other team, they have the worst offensive line in the NFL. They're going to be passing the most of anybody in the NFL. Everybody says they're going to run. What are they going to run for 2.5 yards a carry with Najee behind a shit offensive line? They're not going to be able to run the ball and control the ball that way. They're going to have to control it the same way they did last year with that short passing game. I just don't see it. They're going to have to throw the ball to Juju and Deontay. And if Ben gets hurt, which is I don't wish injury, I don't predict injury, but he's an old guy behind a shitty offensive line. Plays in cold weather.
He's got going for him is he's like 340 pounds. So
he is tough as nails, though, isn't he?
He is tough. He's hard to get down.
So tough.
How many plays have you watched where there's like 5 defenders hanging off of Roethlisberger? He's just kind of shrugging them off, and
yeah. Completion. You're like, God dang, that guy's tough. Yep. Yeah, but just the thought process of how Chase Claypool has to dominate would be like Ben just slinging it everywhere.
He is the one quarterback who plays like the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, but I just don't see it. I see a lot of Deontay Juju targets, and at his cost, I'll take Juju. But especially in Dynasty, because I think his value has plummeted there too. It's not like people are seeing this sort of 1-year temporary situation where everything's going to change next year. They're valuing him like this is his future. The kid's like 23 or 24 years old.
I was going to say they're valuing he's 28 too.
Yeah. The thing is, what you got to be careful with Juju is if he starts off hot, you don't want to spend too much to get him because you got to remember what he is. He's a big slot guy. You got to buy him now. You got to buy him. He's not going to be your guy that is going to turn into like a super alpha receiver or whatever. He's going to be one of those guys who's just kind of on that wide receiver 1-2 borderline.
Let me ask you, Jax. Sorry, guys. Just real quick, Theo. Let me throw some OTC real quick.
No, sure. Go ahead.
With Jax. Juju or Judy?
That's close. That's actually close.
I'll take Juju.
I'll take Juju as well. It's close, though. I'm looking at my ranks right now. I have Juju ahead of them by 4 spots. They're very close in Dynasty. Deontay or Judy?
Wow,
that's a very hard one. That's a very hard one.
You're talking about a 2-round difference.
All right, JD, you've just been usurped on the OTC. Jax just one-upped you by coming up with an even tougher one than you.
I don't know
how about Claypool,
guys going 2 rounds
Judy?
Apart, guys. They're going 2 rounds apart. How's it close?
Claypool or Judy?
Yeah, that's
in
close.
Dynasty. I've got Judy ahead of Claypool.
Yeah.
I'm going to there as well. I think he's just the range of outcomes type thing falls into play where Claypool could potentially have a higher ceiling type for a one season, but I think Judy will be a consistent fantasy option for years to come. He's a great route runner and he'll be highly targeted.
How about Judy or Devontae Smith?
I was going to ask you that one.
Really?
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a very hard one. I would probably still lean Judy, but I didn't really think of it. I've drafted Devontae this year. I think he's going to do very well in Philly. And he looks like the only show in town at wide receiver right now. Rager's already banged up, and I think that like you said, Cortland Sutton's there with Judy, but I still will bet on Judy there.
I have all those guys clustered together: Juju, Galladay, Devontae Smith, Deontay Johnson, Judy, Ayuk, Cooper Kupp, Claypool, and Robert Woods, just all in that little spot after the sort of top elite guys. You start to, there's value in each one of those guys, and Claypool's value is all on upside. I mean, it's just all there on upside.
Yep, exactly.
All right, guys. Anything we haven't touched before we close? We took Jax 135 on this bad boy. I mean, we didn't even ask him if he had a curfew or anything.
No, I don't. Bro, the one thing I do is I go long on once I start talking, I'm like, this is fucking fun as hell. Like, I have so much fun doing this,
Same.
and I love it. So I could talk all night. I mean, I know that people don't want to hear me all night, so
This has been
man,
awesome.
I fucking love it.
I got one more question for you.
Go for
Second round redraft. Who's your running back? Who's the guy that you're hoping is there when your pick comes up?
That's a good question. Christian McCaffrey. No, I'm joking.
Hey, Barkley's fallen in the second, so it's not that,
It's interesting. I get a little nervous in that second round, but I like Antonio Gibson a lot. I like Najee a lot. Aaron Jones was there a lot now. I think he's going to move up.
Yeah, he's going to move up.
Nick Chubb sometimes is there, but I mean, Mixon is scary a little bit. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is actually a player. It's funny because I was telling everybody Clyde Edwards-Helaire was like the RB5 last year, and he wasn't, ahead of Swift, Akers, Dobbins, or JT. And everybody was, saying he was the 101, and I was fading CH. And now I'm like, no, CH is a value.
Yeah,
right.
Remember, he's on the Kansas City Chiefs, guys. Remember what we were talking about? Like, so I think everybody kind of just is like, oh, he sucks. It's like, no, he's still exactly what he was last year. I mean, he's on a huge upside offense, and I mean, he should score more touchdowns. He was really bad by the goal line, which hurt him a lot, and then he got hurt. So
yeah,
if he were
it wasn't just that he was bad either. I mean, it was like how many times did he get hauled down at the 1 yard line?
He couldn't get in.
Yeah, he'd take the ball at the 10 and he'd get hauled down at the 1 or
at the 1 and get hauled down at the 1.
Yeah. Or he
couldn't get in.
He'd get into the end zone and then it was like, illegal formation or, illegal offensive shift or some crappy, penalty that was like, really? Come on.
Yeah. Man. He just couldn't get in. And
no.
That was actually one thing that I had mentioned before the season was I thought his touchdown upside was huge because if you look back at the Patrick Mahomes offense, the prior 2 seasons, the touchdown from the running back position, I think was 12 or more both seasons. It was divided up a little bit because they had more than one guy, but I think it was like close to 15 touchdowns on the ground for their running backs each year. And I was
and this year now, who's going to be the other guy? I mean, who's going to be taking those scores? Is it going to be Darrell Williams? Really?
Yeah, CH has huge upside late in that second round for sure.
Definitely.
No, absolutely. And we love Gibson. I mean, we've all been drafting Gibson. I think that's a great call.
I was going to say he's kind of creeping into that back end of the first now with Akers gone. And
yes.
Theo and I are sitting there talking about it. 30%. Is that too much Gibson or not? I don't know.
Yeah. When do I have to pump the brakes? I'm on the clock. And
I was at 40% on Gibby. That's why I made that. That's why I made that trade for Dalvin. I sent Gibby for Dalvin on a contender just because I was like, after the Akers injury, I don't want to get nailed like I did a couple of years ago with my ownership's a little too lopsided.
So in best ball, I've got Javonte Williams and Antonio Gibson both at 35%.
Yes, you're good. That's what I like.
Yeah, so Antonio Gibson, I guess, is the answer because that's That's the guy.
Yeah.
It says right here. And Javonte is an auto smash. I've got him in the Scott Fish Bowl. Dude, let me just tell you, Javonte Williams will be the RB1 in Denver in short order. And it's a pretty good offense, actually. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities there, with that offense. I mean, Noah Fant, Alberto, the wide receivers, Judy, Sutton. I mean, there's a lot of weapons, a lot of people to pay attention to. They're not going to be able to key on Javonte, and he is going to eat Melvin Gordon.
There you go. How many games is Teddy Bridgewater starting there?
So I said this. I think it's Drew Lock to start.
Okay.
I think it's Drew Lock to start.
Many.
Man, I hope he wins. I hope he wins MVP, man. Let's go.
Over under 4.5.
Yeah. I think that's about right. Over under. What'd you say? 3.5?
4.5.
4.5. I'd have to look at the schedule to make that bet, but I think they're going to be like, here you go, Drew Lock. Let's see it. If you're the guy, you're the guy. If not, we got Teddy. I think that's the way to play it too, because I think if you go the other way, and because you kind of know what you're going to get from Teddy, it's just going to be vanilla. So you're going to put Teddy out there, and you're going to be vanilla, and you're going to be like, should we put in the other guy? I don't fucking know. Like, look, he keeps doing average. Look, he's average again. This is like an average city over here. So I think you go with Lock. You play the upside of Lock. If he can just put it all together and be awesome and be fun and electric, and they're winning. He
needs to not make turnovers with that defense. I mean, Denver's going to have a great defense. If your league, has defense as a position, Denver's one of the ones you want to get. I mean, I think they're going to do just great. I mean, they've got a lot of pieces in place, and
yes,
if they can just limit their turnovers on offense, which we know they can do if Bridgewater gets in there, and we hope they can do if Locke is in there, one way or another, I think they're going to limit down those turnovers, and they're going to put the defense on the field and make some plays.
Brad Wire. Wire. That's okay. I'm always talking. It's an affliction. Brad Wire at the Undroppables has them at as offensive line 21, meaning they're probably middle of the road, and so they could play above or below that. And if they play above that, they could be okay. They've got a few spots where they're a little bit questionable, but that offensive line will be a big determining factor as to how they play. Because everything else is dope, like you say. The defense, the weapons, everything's good.
Yep.
Quarterback.
And the schedule sets up well, not only for the defense, but for one of those quarterbacks to hang on to the job. We actually drafted them last night, Andrew Schellenberg and I. They have the Giants, the Jaguars, both away, but both winnable, and then the Jets coming into Denver. So they could win the first 3 games of the season and be 3-0. With Baltimore coming into Denver in Game 4, so I think that the defense and whoever wins the quarterback job have a chance to shine early on in the season.
Great call.
Yeah. We're going to go out on a quick question from a listener that just sent me a quick DM question here that is crucial for his dynasty team. Touching on some receivers we just talked about, so I'll give it back to you first, Jax. Remind the people where they can find all your goodness. And look, man, we love the talking. That's why we brought you on. That's why the people are tuning in. We love the talk. We love the takes. He's asking, on a dynasty contender as your wide receiver 4 and 5, do you prefer Claypool and Shenault or Deontay Johnson and Fuller?
Is that dynasty?
Yes.
Wow.
Those are his flex, basically his 2 flex positions is what he's asking. Do you prefer?
That's a tough question. I'm gonna tell everybody where they can find me and filibuster this son of a bitch. That's tough. I mean, come on. Because I like Will Fuller this year, but in Dynasty I might go the other way with Claypool and Shenault. I'm probably gonna go Claypool and Shenault because I'm a youth chaser. So whatever. But I don't know. That's a tough one because Fuller could go off. But y'all can find me theundroppables.com. I mean, that's our website. That's where it's happening. We're doing a lot of things there. We're a big team of contributors. We've got so much diversity in terms of what we're putting out there. We've got contracts done by Dan, AWL Sabermetrics. We've got Brad Wire doing the offensive line, as I mentioned. Kyle Larson doing Devi. We've got Dr. Jose doing injury analysis. We've got Tommy Moe and Ashley doing TikTok awesomeness and and analysis. I mean, it's just a lot of fun and a lot of stuff going on at the undroppables.com. You can hit us all up there and follow each and every contributor of the Undroppables. They're all bringing something different. We have analytics, etc. Dynasty, etc. So it's a lot of fun there. My show is The Undrafted, and it's The Undrafted on wherever the hell you find podcasts, everywhere. You can actually search The Undroppables on like iTunes and whatever, and all of our shows will show up because we have other shows. Tommy's got the 2-on-1, which is a great show where he always has two guests on and him, and it's a great show for fantasy football, and more coming. Obviously we're going to put more out this year. We've got a lot of things planned. So anyway, that's where you can find me. I think I'm going to lean Chenault and Claypool. Give me the upside, and I'll sell the two, overvalued pieces for the two up and comers.
Awesome.
Especially at 4 and 5.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. I think I'm leaning that way.
Yeah. At 4 and 5, you're looking for upside.
Yep.
Dan, we're you always like to, you're like the wise man on the show. You always give like a nice tip at the end. So I don't know if you have one, but maybe I'm putting you on the
nice
spot.
tip at the beginning. Get out there and start smashing drafts, man. Come on, this is the time.
True.
that's all I gotta say. I mean, So this was a ton of fun. Really enjoyed it. The Falcone is turning into my spirit animal. We got off to a rocky start with Akers, but everything.
I love it. It was fun. That was the best part of the show.
It was, yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's good. You'll want to have people challenge your assumptions, and
yes,
so that's an absolutely great thing. But I like the way you think about football and how you think about players and everything else. I mean, I just got to say it was just a ton of fun talking with you.
Likewise.
And we got to do this again for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Dan. You were great. I loved actually. I could tell you were. You weren't a gentle flower, so I could push back on you.
That's right.
And it's true, man. Some people I would have been like, "Fuck it, let him go." But I could tell you had a backbone there. I could push, and you'd give me the real without being a little ninny about it. And Theo, I would never argue with him because he kicked my ass. And
that's right.
JD's Canadian, so I can't argue with him because they're just too damn nice. So it's like I had to go for you.
Yep, that's exactly it.
I love it. A little poker approach to the table. Reading his opponent.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Don't fuck with Theo. He'll choke you out.
Brock,
yeah.
show more that, Brock.
Yeah. Don't tell me you never choked nobody out. I mean, that's bullshit now.
I was a bouncer back in the day.
There we go. There it is.
There you go. But not for years. I'm a peaceful guy. But this was an awesome show. This is one we've had booked for a while, and I'm really happy it worked out. Definitely check out Jax on Twitter. Check out the Undroppables. They do some awesome stuff over there. The Tommy Mo TikTok game is off the chains. It's really, really, really entertaining. So keep those up. And that was awesome. This was a great way to close out July for us. Check out the old shows we've had all July and June. We've had some great ones like this, and we're going to keep them going in August. So this was an awesome way to close out July. And we'd love to have you back on.
Thank you so much. And I'll look forward to that. I can't wait. You guys were awesome. This was a ton of fun, and you guys are great.
I gotta awesome. Check out that TikTok stuff. But
I was gonna say, Dan, I think we might have to get you on TikTok, man. You might have to be our TikTok.
Do I have to turn in my AARP card if I get on TikTok?
Fuck.
That's the question. I mean,
Dan, we're just not built for it.
I don't want to lose those senior discounts.
Yeah, we're just not built for it. Us old dogs, It's like you're sitting there doing some weird shit. You're like, what am I doing? This is crazy. I don't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah. That's why we got Tommy Mo. He's up there dancing. He's got all the moves. He's just so fucking cool. Yeah, he's Samoan. Awesome. He's huge. He played like D1 football. Like he's the man. He's great. Just don't say anything bad about the Raiders. He gets a little upset.
Noted.
Guys, we do this show to bring you the goodness, and we do this show for you guys. So let us know, man. If there's a topic you want us to hit on, if there's a guest, we're bringing in the fire guests on the weekly, sometimes on the bi-weekly, actually very often on the bi-weekly.
Next week on the bi-weekly.
Next week we're going bi-weekly. Theo's got us working hard right now in the district. But like I said, guys, we do this show to help you guys win. If there's a topic or a guest that we haven't hit yet, let us know, man, in the comments. Guys, if you're listening to this, whether it's on YouTube later on or on the pod machine, check out the YouTube show, guys. Come in live, ask us questions. You heard it tonight. You got 3-4 questions on there that we got to fit into the show. So we want to participate. We want to build this for you guys, man. We want to build a little GOAT community, the district, you know, and just fill it with a bunch of wins, W's, trophies, and money. That's what I'm talking about. So if you want part of that, make sure you smash the like, smash the subscribe, join us on the regular. Tomorrow, Ship Chaser. For some reason, I was going to Ship Chasers.
Ship chasing.
Wickham has entered the chat.
Guys, those guys are money. Andrew's got them on the GOAT District tomorrow. $500,000 Billies. Check it out. Live draft review. And guys, you don't want to miss any of this goodness, man. Trust me. Like I said, don't bring any knives to a gunfight. We'll check you all later. Check out our partners, FFPC, Dynasty Depot, Viridian Global for the gear right here. Guys, be safe, be happy, and we'll check you all later.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.